Wrestling is pathetic. And I'm not saying that to bash the sport, even though it looks like I am. But it can be a really real liability in the world of combat sports. Now, what I'm trying to do with my upcoming combat sports business, Iron Fist, which is striking based, is to emphasize how you can become a good fighter with this empire of mine, how you can become somebody who's able to throw jabs and crosses and hooks and kicks and everything like that, how to clinch, how to get in there and out, but how to not have to rely so much on wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I'm not here to downplay all of the work and effort that these combat artists put into their craft. What I am here to do is to emphasize why wrestling is overrated and much less effective than it may seem. And I'm here to emphasize that. So number one, guys, the lack of access. We live in a world where in the United States, when you typically look in around your area, if you were to search in Google Maps, typically the last thing you would find is a wrestling gym. You know, you might find a Muay Thai gym, a boxing gym, but it doesn't really deviate much from that. Even if you searched on the internet specific fight gyms, you might find things that range in all kinds of arts, but they would be labeled as boxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, this, that, this, that. But chances are when you actually join the gym and they give you the schedule, it's usually just boxing and Muay Thai or kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, because that's the reality of it. Wrestling is just not that accessible unless you're actually in the school system and they have it as a club, or if you want to pursue it as an Olympic sport, or if you actually want to use some wrestling moves to use in MMA. And even then, you're not using wrestling as a whole, you're using so many other arts that you combine together with wrestling to become an efficient fighter in MMA. So, lack of accessibility poses a major issue. And in the world of fighting and combat, we have to learn to have what is most accessible to us, to use what we can actually have. And the last thing that all of us have at times is wrestling. Simply because there aren't many wrestling gyms. I don't even know if there are any at this point. You want to go to Dagestan 2-3 years and do your wrestling, right? But for me personally, I just think because of the lack of accessibility, that already poses a major issue on its own. Number two, what happens when you pin someone? I mean, sure, you can exhaust yourself 10 minutes wrestling with somebody and throwing them around here and there, but what realistically happens when you pin someone and you don't know how to go further than that? Because chances are, if you watch an MMA fight in UFC, fights rarely end at the moment of a body slam, at the moment of a quick judoka takedown. They end long after. What happens when someone takes you down and you don't know how to respond? You don't know how to actually throw an armbar, how to throw a choke. That is what actually helps you become efficient as a fighter. I watched the fight. It was a street scrap. And it was like two buddies, and one of them was more of just a brawler. And another one of them was a wrestler, right? So they go at it, MMA style fight, and believe it or not, the guy who wasn't a wrestler won. Might seem surprising, but to me it wasn't, because the guy who was using wrestling, he didn't seem to understand that this wasn't a wrestling fight. It's an MMA fight. And in MMA and in general with these fights that include a lot of versatility, you have to learn how to implement a wide range of combat strikes. You can't simply learn how to pin someone down, because pinning someone down, although it does require a degree of exhaustion, sure, it's just very overrated. Because if you don't know how you can use an armbar, how you can choke someone, that is what wins fights. So again, guys, lack of chokes, submissions, or just any other kind of versatility besides body slamming someone. And number three, just a lack of conditioning. Just completely horrendous conditioning. And what I mean by conditioning is not cardiovascular conditioning as a whole, like just running, swimming, biking. I mean body conditioning. How many punches can you take without actually wearing yourself down? How many times can you get head kicked kicked in the body, chopped in the legs with those low kicks, without just completely wimping out of the fight. That is a critical element that plays in the role of fighting in general, in self-defense, in life. And wrestling and jiu-jitsu, the problem with these arts is they don't really teach you that. They don't teach you how to realistically take a punch in the face, which gives a shock that no amount of wrestling can give for you. As much as it looks like I've been bashing wrestling, I'm not here to bash it. I'm not here to wage war against the art of wrestling and to say that it is completely useless, because there are times where it can be very applicable, especially versus someone that is completely untrained and unexperienced and doesn't know what he's doing. But in the sense that we're talking about being able to be an overall well-rounded fighter, being good at wrestling is just like being good at boxing. You know how to throw a punch, you know how to throw a 1-1-2, but what happens if someone takes you to the ground? You don't know what to do. Same exact thing with wrestling. You might know how to take someone to the ground, you can be very efficient at that, but what happens when it comes down to actually being able to submit somebody? What happens when you're staying on your feet and you're potentially fighting somebody who is more experienced than just any average fighter? A person who knows how to actually use his range and distance around you, how to throw a long jab, how to measure the distance, how to keep you at arm's length, distance away. I once watched a fight, or at least heard of one. It was between a Muay Thai fighter and he beat a wrestler. I mean, it sounds shocking. You have a stand-up striking artist beating somebody who is primarily ground game, and usually when you hear the name wrestler and a striker, you imagine the wrestler would instantly take a striker down, but in this particular scenario, the Muay Thai fighter won. What can we learn from this? We learn that just being able to take someone to the ground, as impressive it might be, it just lacks a lot of versatility. And what I stand for, and what my upcoming corporation stands for and Empire stands for, is not that. Is not just being somebody who can only learn one form of fighting without learning how to actually mix so many arts together. Because that is what truly makes you a good fighter. Being able to clinch, being able to elbow, being able to throw knees, being able to be light on your feet, to move around without completely exhausting yourself the first 10 seconds of a match. So when we look at all this together, we talk about the lack of accessibility, how it is literally rarely out there unless you're actually in school or in college. Number two, how it literally provides no form of chokes or submissions where you can quickly end a fight. And three, last but not least, arguably one of the most important ones, the fact that you don't actually learn how to take a punch to the face or to get kicked in the body and to overall develop that strong sense of body conditioning. You put yourself at a major risk. And that is the problem with wrestling. I once watched a video, it was a Rocky video, and it was motivational. It's not about how many shots you can take. No, it's not. It's not about how much you can throw out there, pardon me, but it's about how much you can take and keep going. How many times you can get punched in the face and get knocked down and just keep getting back up. And that's what wrestling doesn't stand for. But that's what I stand for. And that's what striking stands for. Because when you're in a boxing match and you're in the ring and you're going round after round and someone is bashing you in the head and beating you in the body, or you're in a Muay Thai fight and you were in the clinch and you were just getting kneed and sweeped and toppled to the ground, you are getting beaten down. I mean, you are getting marks on your shins, you are getting beaten up literally just everywhere, and your head is just throbbing in a way that it wouldn't be after just a wrestling match. You learn how to toughen yourself through that. And that is what true stand-up striking stands for, and what wrestling lacks. Call it immature, controversial, a lack of edginess. I'm not aiming for that. I'm aiming for true transparency in combat sports. And wrestling purely lacks that. And when you completely rely on that, or jiu-jitsu, or any form of ground striking for that matter, or ground game, it becomes a major liability for you. Again, thank you all for watching this again. Please stay tuned, follow, like, subscribe, share this with your buddies if you like. And we are also about to publish I Am Iron Fist. Combat striking provides a wide variety of things. I will get into that later once it is actually published. But until then, as always, stay blessed.